Gulf did.
And we did flight MH370. Malaysian Airlines 370 went missing without a trace. It was carrying 239 passengers. The Rolls-Royce GE90 engine is very reliable and is known to be a very reliable engine, as well as the 777, which is also known to be a very reliable plane. With MH370, the thing is people have a lot of different opinions on what happened, as you'll see later on in our video. We'll be going over a lot of these in the other slides. This is what other people think happened across the US. We zoomed in on Google Maps to random places and then called the place that we landed on. So this is that video.
Wingate Curtis speaking, about you.
Hi, we're two high school students from Madison, Wisconsin, and we were just wondering if you have like a couple minutes to answer a few questions.
What's that?
What,
Sure, what was your question?
so have you heard of the Malaysian airline 370?
1 second, sir.
This sounds like so random probably, but I don't remember the name of the show, but it's just like a thing where like they go through a storm and then the plane just disappears for 5 years and then like reappears, if you've heard of that. But sometimes I like to think about that just because I'm into super like conspiracy theories and that kind of thing. Part of it is probably just that it crashed somewhere, in the ocean, and then just like rough destroyed evidence, that kind of thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
How can I help you?
hi. We're two high schools.
I'm sorry, excuse me 1 second. Is there any way you can call back in the next 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for holding.
What the airline's flight that went missing?
Yes.
What are some of your theories on that?
Just how it crashed. That. Why would it happen? I think it was probably just like
it's just substitution.
some sort of natural occurrence. Whatever it is, I feel like. I think it was made a big deal in the news because airline crashes aren't as common today as they used to be. Like in the 60s and 70s, they used to be like really common. But yeah, I don't think it's a big conspiracy or anything like that.
Have you heard of the Malaysian Airlines crash by chance?
The one that disappeared?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a theory on that, or what do you think happened?
I don't have a theory on it.
Okay.
It's a mystery complete.
Sure. Okay.
Other missing planes that left in a similar fashion but not as bad, were Air France 447, Flying Tiger Line Flight 739, and obviously infamous Amelia Earhart.
Some info about Amelia Earhart was she won the women's world altitude with the record of 14,000 feet, and that happened in 1922. She was the first woman to fly to the Atlantic Ocean in 1928. And then Amelia Earhart was also the first ever woman to fly solo to the Atlantic Ocean. She died in 1932. The Bermuda Triangle. There has been a total number of 50 ships and 20 airplanes that have went missing in the Bermuda Triangle. And the deepest part of the Atlantic Ocean is the Milwaukee Depth, and that is located in the Bermuda Triangle. And it goes down 27,000 feet. And then, since compasses often point directly to the North Pole rather than magnetic north, it can confuse pilots and boats in the Bermuda Triangle, since scientists believe that these magnetic forces can disrupt the controls and the radios of planes and ships. Then it causes them to crash or sink.
One theory that people have is the ghost flight theory. A ghost flight is when a rapid depressurization occurs. Pilots go unconscious before they're able to put their oxygen masks on, and so the autopilot will then take control of the plane and fly it basically as far as it can go on that fuel until it will slowly start to decline and very slowly spiral till it hits ground. Other examples of ghost flight, famously Payne Stewart's private jet, the golfer. That is his in the bottom left, I believe. Also, Helios Airlines 522. This is another very famous one that occurred. Yeah. Why the theory makes sense. The aircraft ignored multiple communication attempts with tower. On a ghost flight, obviously if pilots get knocked out, they're not going to be able to communicate. They didn't do anything. They would indicate that their radio is broken, such as squawking 7600, which is what would typically be done. There was no sign of activity in the cockpit. There were no air system. Like, they didn't transmit anything that would indicate that they had air with their thing, as I mentioned. Like squawking 7600, which means you've got NORAD, broken radio, no radio. It doesn't make sense because radar contact randomly stopped instead of seeing it spiral out like you'd see in the corner there, and there was no mayday call, obviously.
Suicide theories and mass murder. This theory states that the captain or first officer of the airplane is responsible for the deaths of the 239 people on board. Some examples of this happening, the most famous was the German Wings 9525 incident, and then the GAL 350, and then the Royal Air Baroque 360. Why it makes sense. Someone could have turned off the transponder, which was found to have been turned off manually. Manual course change on the aircraft, and then it was a slow and steady descent rather than a rapid, uncontrolled descent to below where the radar could detect it, around like 1,000 feet. Then why it doesn't make sense? We have to assume no one tried to stop him, because if they had tried, they would have been, or there would have been a sign of it happening, more than likely. Still, so
Uncertain.
We're editing this. I don't care. And then hijacking. Another theory is that the flight got hijacked. A lot of people believe that this is the most possible case. Some reasons are there was zero reports of debris being found. No one has any idea where the planes ended up. And then some people find it suspicious that the hijackers turned off the transponder on the aircraft, and the ground didn't at all suspect hijacking, which would have given them a better chance to find out what happened. Other examples of this, the most famous ones was all flights that crashed on 9/11, and then the Pan Am 783, and then there's a lot more. Why it makes sense. The transponder was manually turned off. There was a manual change in the course, and then the airline didn't have communications, and that doesn't make sense. Why it doesn't make sense. Transponder.
Transponder manually turned off. Most hijackers probably wouldn't know the specific functions on a aircraft, especially at 777. The descent was very normal and looked controlled, rather than a hijacking, which would typically be uncontrolled and an unexperienced looking decline. There was no ransom, so they weren't doing it for money. They just, if it was a hijacking, they were just doing it to kill people or steal the plane. Lack of communication. They went NORAD, which means no radio, and they had no signs of anything that would indicate a hijacking. There's no interference with the hijackers, especially being after 9/11. Someone, a passenger or multiple, would have tried to stop it, and they more than likely wouldn't have gotten away with it unless there were a lot of hijackers. Theory of government. Some people think that the government crashed it. This is definitely the closest to a conspiracy theory that these come to, besides aliens. Why it makes sense. Plane went missing and no one knows why, really. Government didn't share much information, which is relatively normal for large incidents like this, because usually you try and figure it out and then give information once that's known for certain, which you can actually see in aviation with aviate, navigate, communicate, which is what all pilots go by. It means fly the plane and then communicate, because it's more important. It doesn't make sense because there's not really much of a reason to do so. It's bad publicity if citizens find out and they're killing them for no apparent reason. And these are our sources.